At 1:47 p.m. on the afternoon of March 23rd, 1945, Sergeant Edmund C. Shible hung beneath a B-17 flying fortress at 27,000 feet above Germany, trapped inside a 44-inch sphere of plexiglass. Position fetal. Knees pulled against chest. Hands gripping the triggers of 250 caliber machine guns. Isolated from the rest of the crew by metal and vacuum. The loneliest position in the entire Second World War. The briefing that morning had been simple. Pretty much a milk run, weak flak expected, no fighter action. Holzwickede marshalling yards, Germany. Mission number 10 for Eddie. Just one more. Just 3 weeks before the war in Europe would end. But there was something the briefing didn't mention. A statistic that every ball turret gunner knew but never spoke about. 152 of 158 ball turret gunner deaths happened in crashes, not combat. 3 times higher than any other crew position. The reason was simple. No parachute inside the turret. The chute was stored above, in the fuselage. If the B-17 went down, the ball turret gunner died trapped. Edmund C. Shible is the only documented ball turret gunner to survive the catastrophic fragmentation of a B-17 in flight. The only one. In the entire history of the 8th Air Force. If you want to see how Eddie survived, hit that like button. It helps us share more forgotten stories like this one. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Eddie. Edmund C. Shible. Nickname, Eddie. He enlisted with his best friend, Byron Schlag. 2 kids who decided to go to war together. Byron became a tail gunner. Eddie became a ball turret gunner. Same crew. Lieutenant Charles H. Bruckman, pilot. Same missions. Same odds of survival. Eddie had completed 9 combat missions before March 23rd. He wasn't a rookie. He wasn't a veteran. He was in the middle, competent enough to know what to do, but not experienced enough to be immune to fear. 9 missions meant survival. It meant he was good at his job. The ball turret. A sphere of plexiglass suspended beneath the B-17, 44 inches in diameter. Permanent fetal position for 8 to 10 hours straight. Temperature at 25,000 feet, 60 degrees below zero. Total acoustic isolation, no face-to-face conversation with crew members, only distorted voices through the intercom. Complete dependence on an oxygen mask. No parachute inside the turret. Parachute stored above in the fuselage. If the B-17 was hit and started going down, emergency protocol for the ball turret gunner was this. Rotate turret to neutral position. Unlock ejection mechanism. Climb up through the opening into the fuselage. Grab parachute stored above. Attach parachute to chest. Open side hatch. Jump. Estimated time under ideal conditions, 45 to 60 seconds. Time available in an uncontrolled spin, 10 to 15 seconds. The math didn't work. Eddie was Catholic. Byron was Protestant. They often visited each other's churches. Sometimes they attended Jewish services together. Not out of religious duty, out of curiosity, out of friendship, out of searching for something that made sense in the middle of war. March 23, 1945. The 447 Bombardment Group took off from Rattlesden, England. Target, Holzwickede marshalling yards, northeast of Koblenz, Germany. Railway marshalling yards. Objective, cut German supply lines. Bombing altitude, 23,000 feet. Tight defensive formation. B-17s flying so close that pilots could see each other's facial expressions through cockpit windows. Eddie trapped in fetal position. Knees folded against chest. Hands gripping the triggers of 250 caliber machine guns. Plexiglass fogged by frozen breath. Below him, 23,000 feet of empty air to German soil. Around him, only sky, clouds, and the distant roar of 4 Wright Cyclone engines above his head. Total isolation. If something went wrong, he would be the last to know. The formation reached the target. Sparse flak, exactly as the briefing promised. Bombers released their loads. thousands of pounds of explosives falling onto marshalling yards. Mission accomplished. Formation turned toward England. 200 miles of hostile airspace until home. Eddie relaxed. Just another milk run. Mission number 10 almost complete. Byron Schlag, tail gunner, Eddie's best friend, was the first to see it happen. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw pieces of aluminum flying by, including a large panel of engine cowling. Byron pressed the intercom button to warn the pilot. He heard the engineer shout, "Pilot, look out." At that instant, horrifying crash. The B-17 was hit from above. Byron screamed, "Lord, help me." Then, total darkness. What Byron didn't see, but later learned. Another B-17 from the 34th Bomb Group had been hit by flak, lost its right wing, entered an uncontrolled fall. As it fell, it collided with a B-17 from the 487th Group, damaged but didn't destroy it. Continuing its fall, it collided completely with Ole Scraperon, Eddie and Byron's B-17. Impact bent the right wing. Internal explosion. Aircraft entered a tight spin, an uncontrolled and accelerated rotation. Byron woke up several thousand feet later, disoriented, falling. He realized he was falling right side up, still inside the tail section of the bomber. The fuselage had been cut in two just behind him. Below, he saw the rest of the B-17 falling in a flat spin. The aircraft plummeting toward a forested area. Large trees began stripping the wings as the wreckage impacted. Eddie was in the half of the aircraft that was falling in an uncontrolled spin, trapped inside the ball turret. The G-forces of the spin made movement impossible. He couldn't rotate the turret to neutral position. He couldn't reach his parachute. He couldn't do anything. Just feel the aircraft spinning, spinning, spinning. Terminal velocity, approximately 175 miles per hour. Altitude, 27,000 feet. Time until impact, approximately 90 seconds. The sound, the howling of wind through torn metal. The resonant vibration of the spinning spherical structure. The distant roar of engines that still work before exploding. The sensation, G-forces pressing against the steel seat. Disorienting rotation, no horizon, no up or down. Cold burning through the electric flight suit. Vision, sky spinning, forced approaching. Thought, this is my end. Eddie would later tell Byron, I stayed in the ball turret and prayed. Byron asked to whom. Eddie answered, to anyone who would listen. Catholic. Protestant. Jewish. God. Universe. Any force that could intervene. Last conscious action of a man who knew he was dying. Terminal velocity for a falling B-17, approximately 175 miles per hour. Isolated ball turret, approximately 140 to 160 miles per hour. Less drag, higher weight density. Impact at that speed against the ground equals a force of over 200 Gs. The human body can withstand a maximum of about 40 Gs before organ rupture. Eddie should have become organic paste inside a sphere of metal. The Army Air Force's emergency manual, procedure for ball turret gunner in damaged aircraft. Rotate turret, unlock, climb up, grab parachute, attach, jump. Time required 45 to 60 seconds. Eddie's reality, aircraft in uncontrolled spin, G-forces making movement impossible 90 seconds until impact. The protocol assumed level flight. Eddie didn't have level flight. Eddie had a tornado of aluminum falling from the sky. Alan Magee, another ball turret gunner. December 1943. B-17 destroyed over France. Magee fell 22,000 feet without a parachute. Survived. How? He fell through the glass skylight of a train station. Glass absorbed the initial kinetic energy. Magee suffered 28 shrapnel wounds but survived. Famous story. Studied by military engineers. Eddie was falling over German forest. Trees are not glass. Trees are solid trunks. Trees should kill. A ball turret plummeting at over 140 miles per hour should impact the ground, or a tree, spherical structure collapse under impact force. Eddie crushed between twisted metal and steel seat. Instant death. That was expected. That's what physics predicted. That's what engineering manuals confirmed. Weeks later, Byron Schlag, recovering at 90th General American Hospital in Verdun, France. American intelligence officers interrogated him about the crash. They informed him, "Your friend Eddie Shible survived." Byron didn't believe it. Impossible. He saw the aircraft fall. He saw the impact with the forest. Nobody survives that. Especially not a ball turret gunner without a parachute. The officers insisted, he's alive. He was found by Germans, captured, then liberated. Byron was discharged, went home to the United States. He discovered that Eddie was hospitalized at Dachau Army Hospital, Butler, Pennsylvania. He went to visit him. Eddie was alive. Broken back, body covered in bandages, but alive. Byron asked, "When you found out your chute was gone, what did you do?" Eddie answered, "I stayed in the ball turret and prayed." Byron asked, "To whom?" Eddie said, "To anyone who would listen." What saved Eddie? The Sperry A-2A ball turret was designed as a defensive position, not as a survival capsule. But the design had accidental properties. The spherical shape distributes impact force radially, not concentratedly. The 0.6-inch steel-armored seat absorbed the initial impact. The structure was suspended by tubes connected to the main pillars of the fuselage. When the aircraft fragmented, the connections fractured progressively. The ball turret detached as a cohesive unit. It didn't explode into scattered debris. It fell like a primitive capsule. The ball turret, falling at approximately 140 miles per hour, struck the top of a German forest. First tree, large branches absorbed energy, reduced speed by approximately 10 miles per hour. Second tree, more absorption, more reduction. Third, fourth, fifth. Byron had seen from a distance large trees stripped the wings as it impacted. The trees didn't kill Eddie. The trees saved Eddie. Each progressive impact dissipated kinetic energy. Terminal velocity reduced from 140 miles per hour to approximately 100 miles per hour, then 80 miles per hour, then 60 miles per hour. Final impact against forest floor. Force still brutal but survivable. Military engineers later analyzed the case. They calculated single impact at 140 miles per hour equals force concentration equals over 200 Gs equals instant death. Multiple progressive impacts at decreasing speeds equals force distribution equals maximum 40 to 60 Gs in each impact equals severe injuries but possible survival. Eddie suffered approximately 25 to 30 progressive impacts through the forest. None individually fatal, all collectively life-saving. Eddie was found still sitting inside the ball turret, unconscious, back broken in multiple points, vertebrae compressed but not shattered, spine intact enough not to cause paralysis. The spherical shape of the turret plus steel seat plus progressive impacts equals load distribution along the entire structure. It didn't concentrate force on the spine. Eddie should have been dead. Eddie should have been paralyzed. Eddie was alive and would eventually walk again. Missing Aircrew Report 13617. MXCR 13617. Official document confirming B-17G number 42-31582. Ol Scraperon 447 bomb group destroyed in midair collision March 23, 1945. 7 crew members killed. 2 survivors, Byron Schlag, tail gunner, and Edmund C. Shible, ball turret gunner. Shible, the only documented ball turret gunner in the entire Second World War to survive catastrophic fragmentation of aircraft in flight. German civilians found Eddie in the wreckage. German soldiers captured him. March 23, 1945, captured. April 13th, 1945, liberated by American forces. 3 weeks as a prisoner of war. Broken back. No adequate medical treatment. He survived because Germany was collapsing. Guards had no orders, resources, or will to execute wounded prisoners. Eddie transferred to Deshaun Army Hospital, Butler, Pennsylvania. Byron visited him. For the first time since March 23rd, best friends reunited. Byron's reflection. Since Eddie was Catholic and I was Protestant, we had often visited each other's churches, as well as having attended Jewish services together. It was only by the Lord's grace that both Eddie and I survived when both of us could have died so easily, so many times. Unlike Alan McGee, whose story was documented, studied, celebrated. Unlike Robert E. Femoyer of the 711 Squadron, same unit as Eddie, who received the Medal of Honor. Eddie Shible received no documented official recognition, no publicly registered Purple Heart, no Air Medal, no mention in unit histories. Only MXCR 13617. Survivor. Injuries, broken back. Returned April 13th, 1945. MACR 13617 proved to military engineers. Protection of 0.6 inches of steel withstands catastrophic impact. Spherical shape distributes force that saves lives. Structural isolation, turret as a separate unit, offers survival even in complete fragmentation. Later designs of protective structures incorporated these extreme data. The case provided military physiologists with unique data on extreme falls. Unconsciousness as protector reduces sensitized G-forces. Structural confinement better than free fall. Multiple progressive impacts better than single impact. Hypoxia at 27,000 feet is not immediately fatal as believed. These data informed ejection survival protocols and high-altitude rescue procedures. Edmund C. Shible did not leave a tactical legacy that rewrote manuals. He did not execute improvisation that inspired generations. He did not receive official recognition, but he proved something more fundamental. Adequate engineering can save lives under theoretically unbearable conditions. His broken but living body was found still sitting in the turret that fell 27,000 feet through German forest. No law of physics should have allowed his survival, but he survived. MXCR 13617 records without drama, survivor. The ball turret gunner position was the loneliest, most dangerous, most lethal position on the B-17. Edmund Shible occupied that position on March 23, 1945. And when the aircraft disintegrated around him, he had no choice, no heroism, no improvisation. He just remained trapped, prayed to whoever was listening, and survived because engineering, chance, and perhaps some force beyond physics worked together. Not all survival requires heroism. Sometimes design is enough. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor, hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We rescue forgotten stories from dusty archives every single day. Stories about ball turret gunners who fell from the sky. Best friends who refused to die. Real people. Real survival. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Are you watching from the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia? Our community stretches across the entire world. You're not just a viewer. You're part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if someone in your family served. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure Edmund Shible does not disappear into silence. These men deserve to be remembered, and you're helping make that happen.